For better or for worse, professional wrestling has always been more about the entertainment sides of sports. Entertainment. Yeah, we like to watch well-choreographed matches and applaud the technical, in-ring skills of some athletes, but by and large, the thing that keeps us coming back time and time again are the stories. Like the time Santino's Cobra was charmed by both Kali and Jinder's musical instruments, even though they were clearly not using the punji, the traditional Indian subcontinental instrument used to charm snakes, but rather children's recorders. But that's okay, because it wasn't really a cobra on Santino's arm, so I forgive them. Anyway, sometimes these titanic encounters could be turned into films, so let's look at some. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 9 awesome wrestler backstories that could be turned into movies. Number 9. DOINK. Right. No, hang on. Don't just hear us out. The original DOINK the Clown, as played by Matt Osborne, wasn't the children's birthday party character that he became in later versions. Far from it. He started off as a captivating heel. Admittedly, the idea of an evil clown does sound rather generic for a film, unless it's Stephen King's It, but the thing about DOINK's original gimmick is that he wasn't really an evil clown, per se. He was mostly just miserable, and he took out his misery on the fans and other wrestlers by playing cruel pranks on them. It's not that he was operating with Saw-level malice or doing anything particularly violent, but you could tell that he relished in making other people upset, and there's a film in that. Plus, it would probably feature several scenes of DOINK laughing at little children's pain, which is something I would certainly watch 90 minutes of. Number 8. Val Venis. It should go without saying that some of the more gratuitous parts of Val's Venus would need to be toned down lest it turn into one of those VHSs your dad has. By taking his story at face value and understanding that it was used almost exclusively to make people laugh, you can see that it's really not that much different to any other frat comedy that's come out since Porky's. Now, maybe you tweak the role just a bit to make him less of a chiseled hunk, with a guy more like Seth Rogen taking the part, for example, and the simple concept of male porn star turned professional athlete is rife with comedic possibilities. Number 7. Goldust. When Goldust first appeared on WWE programming, he was an oddity, a cross-dressing villain obsessed with the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, using flirtatious mind games to get what he needed from his opponents while groping himself heavily in the process. There's an almost spellbinding character study here that could easily find its way into cinematic retelling. Even with focusing on Goldust's peculiar brand of BDSM, there's some heady and enigmatic stuff to get through. He's a master manipulator and one who occasionally has difficulty controlling himself. He has an obvious detachment from the real world, as evidenced by his belief that life was nothing more than a film. Basically, it's a reverse Truman Show, but with more homoeroticism and a much more bizarre lead. Number 6. Daniel Bryan. Rudy, Rocky, The Karate Kid, Bedazzle. Audiences love nothing more than a sports movie about an underdog. And by any stretch of that definition, Daniel Bryan is certainly an underdog. Look up the term on Wikipedia. There he is, it's D-Bry. Dreaming of the chance to be WWE champion, Bryan bounced from promotion to promotion for a full decade, being released from WWE 2 different times in that period without ever making a huge splash. In fact, it almost seems like Daniel Bryan was never supposed to be a professional wrestler. Cue the inspirational montage! Despite the odds and the numerous obstacles stacked against him, fans of Daniel Bryan never lost faith in him, and he finally made it to the biggest stage in sports entertainment, WrestleMania, becoming the unlikeliest WWE champion in the history of the industry. Actually, no, there's Jinder, wasn't there? Also, since Bryan's real-life story mirrors his characters, the film could also make a gripping biopic. Number 5. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. DiBiase's gimmick was a rather simple one, really. A rich shitbag who wants to use his money to literally make people do anything he wants them to. Since everybody has a price, as DiBiase says, there's seemingly no end to what someone like the $1 Million Man could get people to do for him. And this could get very depraved really quickly. Then again, it could also be a little silly, with DiBiase flaunting his wealth in the faces of all the little people by paying them to perform the most menial of tasks for his enjoyment. A man who buys his way to the top isn't necessarily anything new in cinema, but the weird and obscene ways DiBiase chose to show off his riches were novel, if nothing else. Number 4. Mankind. Alright, let's get serious. Has there ever been a greater example of the classic tortured soul in professional wrestling than Mick Foley's haunting turn as Mankind? Inspired by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Mick Foley crafted a barely human persona that captured fans' curiosity like no other psychopathic character before him. Mankind is a deranged schizophrenic that shrieks all the time, physically abuses himself because he enjoys pain, and lives in various boiler rooms around the United States. There was also the small matter that he wore a Silence of the Lambs-style leather mask, and at one time, his only friend was a rat named George, which is nice. Perhaps the most satisfying plotline could involve the transition from a teenager who fancied himself a wrestler and called himself Dude Love to Mankind. The descent into mental illness would ultimately unveil a man who's so unwell that society deemed him a threat to himself and to others. Number 3. Kane and Undertaker. Two physically gifted siblings are raised in a funeral home. The older of the two, a pyromaniac and disturbed soul, sets the funeral home on fire, killing his parents and presumably his younger brother in the process. He denies all charges, persuading the police that it was actually his little brother who committed the arson. But unbeknownst to him, his little brother escaped the fire and was forced to hole up in a mental asylum, with his intense hatred and aggression towards his older sibling growing by the day. Soon, they will be reunited, and when they are, there's no telling the level of physical and emotional pain that will be inflicted. Come on. I mean, just make the bloody thing. Number 2. Devil's Advocate, Sean O'Hare. Despite his gimmick never taking off, the core idea of O'Hare and his Devil's Advocate character was rock solid. He was as charming as he was deceptive, and he got off on convincing people to do things that might ultimately destroy their lives. On the topic of being unfaithful, he said the following: "When was the last time you did something for you? We all know it's just a physical thing. It's not like you're going to leave your wife. Look at it this way. It will make your relationship stronger in the end. You'll appreciate your wife more." What the f***, Sean? Now, technically, there are already 2 films out there called The Devil's Advocate, but one is a horror movie about the actual devil, and the other is a drama about the Catholic Church, neither of which truly encroach on O'Hare's territory. This guy is seriously fascinating, and there's no way a full-length script wouldn't be just as engrossing. Number 1. The Wyatt family. Who is Sister Abigail, for the love of all that is f***? A terrifying mixture of backwoods cult antics, sheep masks, and cryptic doublespeak, the Wyatt family is one of the most compelling stables that WWE has ever seen. And if you really need convincing that their story is interesting enough to be converted into a horror movie, you should probably go back and rewatch their creepy series of vignettes again. One would hope the film adaptation would be more about Sister Abigail than anything else, whose touch could save the world and whose kiss burns it to the ground. Her death is the precipice that the Wyatt family stands on, and her message of "get them before they get you" is what drives all of their motivations. 1 part Deliverance, 3 parts The Devil's Reject, and a whole mess of Charles Manson thrown in for good measure. The Wyatt family is certainly not for the whole family.